as Christians, we do have questions to God sometimes. We do challenge what he do. Why did you cause that disaster to happen? And why did you allow these innocent people to die?
Like slavery, you're looking at generations of fathers, grandfathers, grandsons being born into slavery and dying a slave. How do we explain this? Because I don't have the answer.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. If you're here, we appreciate you for being here. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you like the episode, go ahead and give it a like and then hit that notification bell so you can be notified when there's a new episode. Today, we got a good topic. Mike, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so today's topic is one question that you would ask God. And the rationale was I was just thinking, and, we get inspiration throughout the week. And to be honest, when I text this to the fellas, I can't even recall exactly what sparked it. But I do know this is a recurring thing that I think about. And, I wanted to see what you guys thought about it because I think it's caused some people to have questions. And some people to even struggle with their Christianity just because naturally we want to seek to have answers. And some things are just literally just unexplainable. So I wanted to kick it off to you guys and just kind of see what thoughts you had on it.
Yeah, well, I like the topic. I love the topic actually, because to your point, I think if we honest, as Christians, we do have questions to God sometimes. We do challenge what he do. Not that we got the right to do it, but that human nature in us kind of like, well, man, why did you do this? Or, why did you, cause that disaster to happen and all these people died? Or not, even if it wasn't so much somebody saying that he caused it, why did you allow these innocent people to die? Or, why am I not in a better situation than I was? So I think there's a lot of questions we put out there, and you said it. Hey, we don't know what God knows, So I mean, I think I don't want to dig into too much of it right now. I'm gonna give Martell a chance to kind of share his thoughts on the topic.
No, I think that it's one of those that I think everybody's got like everybody's got a few questions, because there's always those things, just like you were saying, that happen that they're just you just don't have an answer for it. And it's like, okay, it always comes down to, okay, if there's a God, then how in the world this, right? How in the world X? And then that always is the equation of questions. And it's like the Bible is very, very thorough. So like, for me, that whole equation has come up plenty of times, and typically the answer, I'll just find it inside of the Bible. Like, it's somewhere in there. But then there's also those things that aren't fully written in the Bible, that aren't all the way explained, all the way in detail. And then there's some things that happen to certain, we'll call them Bible characters, where like something happened in their life, and then it's just like, why this instead of that? Like, why didn't you just tell them? Or why did this have to happen to this person? Or there's some things that are in the Bible that's like, sometimes I think like this had to be important because you left it in here. But for what? For what reason did this have to be in this particular spot in the Bible? Like, what was the thing I need to get from this story right here? Because there's a few of those, like the book of Obadiah, that's in the Bible. Most people don't even know that that's even a Bible book. But it's like, I went past the book of Obadiah the other day, and I was reading it. I'm like, first off, I had to triple check. I'm like, is this in other books? If I go to other people's Bible, is this in there too? And I realized, oh shoot, this is in everybody's Bible. This is a thing. And so I read through it. I'm like, just such a it just seems like such an off story. But it's like, okay, I understand that there's a theme to it, but it's like, who's Obadiah? What's his background? How he get a chapter? But yeah, no, that's kind of what I was thinking when the topic was presented.
At least for me, I mean, the Bible tells us this too. Some people ask the question, "Hey, why were we created? Why did God create us?" And the word is pretty clear. He created us to worship Him, to basically worship Him. And we can wrap that up in many different things. But folks, like, I think it's hard to understand that we were created by God for some people, and then that purpose. They people want to break away because we rebels by nature. But you know, you think about our parents. And then just be clear, our parents did not create us, okay? But our parents love us, right? They raise us. And I'm just talking about the role of a parent, and it's an unconditional love. You know what I mean? And they want to see us succeed. And I always try to use that as a parallel to, like, hey, God wants to see us succeed. He loves us. He created us. We should want to worship Him because He loves us. So that's how at least I try to answer that question. But what's some questions that you guys pop in your head that come to mind when Martell, you laid out a few. Mike, what's some of the things that you think about?
So, and I'm almost positive this probably is what sparked it, because I revisit this a lot. I'm a studier of history, and it's interesting because in the day that we live in today, history is so interesting because, well, just because of the facts that we know about, right? But then you look at the perspective where we know it was shaped by, a certain people that basically were able to tell the story. So then it makes you question, like, well, were some of these stories, some of the facts. So one of the questions that is nonstop recurring, and this is actually, I want to ask you guys, how do we explain this? Because I don't have the answer, and I've always wondered about this, but it goes back to like slavery, as far as our people being in slavery for this amount of time, over 400 years. I've always questioned that, like, man, because in that time span, you're looking at generations of, fathers, grandfathers, grandsons being born into slavery and dying a slave. And I know that, we're not gonna find salvation on this earth, right? We get it in once we go to heaven, but it makes me think about it because we look at the life and times of today, and then just some of the complaints, like first world problems that we hear. It's like, bro, we're all living in a time where we're in a very spoiled state compared to our ancestors. And so that's one of the recurring questions that I've always had. I know others have it too, and it's kind of one of those things like, okay, how do we how do we explain this?
Man, the slavery question, and it's one of many, but for us it hit home, right? So it's the Bible talks about hey, that it rains on both the just and the unjust, and slavery to me is a product of a sinful heart. When you think about those type of things, God didn't ordain it. He let's say He allowed us to have free will, which leads to sin kind of doing this thing, and He allows slavery, and which is, like, so we say it's horrible. But when you look at slavery too, one thing, you look at history, the slaves went through, like, I can't imagine going through it. But in some ways, you can say that when they truly found God, when they found the Word, they found inspiration, they found hope. Even though the slave masters wanted to use it as a controlling factor, but the slaves themselves started to understand and read the Bible and understand the pathway to salvation, that God was hope, that they had a destination other than being in bondage. And, without hope, man, people die. They spiritually die, and they will physically die sometimes without hope. So I would say that God showed that he can be there and be that hope for those who are hopeless.
So I guess the slavery topic, um, there's a lot of things. That's another one of those things where it's like, okay, God loves us. How could this possibly happen for 400 years? There had to be a bunch of good people that were born into slavery, who lived as slaves, struggled their entire life, and died. They didn't get to do nothing else. They had no other option, no other choice. That was just their reality. And so it's like, why would this thing happen? And I think that it's a similar question to, like, why, bad things happen to good people. And the answer, now I'm not God, but when I read the Bible, it's very clear to me that he does not go back on his word. He doesn't go back on the fact that he gave us that free will. Like, he said, like, I mean, he made it so that you can do what you want to do. You have the opportunity to do wrong. You have the opportunity to mess up. And like Rodney, you were saying, it's like there's a group of people who at a certain time, they decided that this was what they were going to believe, and this is the way that they were going to operate. And these people are going to actually just serve us, and that's just going to be what it is. And they built it. They built their thing. And the thing about it is, principles like the laws that govern the universe, they don't fail. No matter if you gave your tithe and offering, no matter if you walked the old lady across the road, no matter how good of a person you are, the laws are the laws. Just like gravity, it doesn't matter who you are and how you feel, it's gonna work every single time, no matter what. And so there are the people, they built these systems that produced a certain result, which was slavery, and they executed way better than we did at that time. We had no other, we could not fight it. But no, those systems just work. The laws just work every single time. And so, yeah, I 100% God is in there. God was in the details of it, making sure that there was a way to get out of it, making sure that there was hope. And I think slavery 100% is I think if you ever wanted to see an example of what the limits of a human's will, you could see it inside of slavery over those 400 years. Because there was people who fought through that joint all the way to it. And we just like you were talking about first world problems, we got people who are pissed off because their Uber Eats order came and they were missing the tomatoes that they wanted from the grocery store, and they pissed off. They absolutely going crazy on the person. But it's like, there was people who had no choice about what they were going to eat for their entire life. What are you crying about?
Yeah, and that's one of the big issues I have with like today's teachings, as far as even a lot of parents that are, it's just it's weird, but we're evolving as people, right? We're having technological evolution. We're able to do things extremely fast. We have a lot of comfort and convenience, but we're losing a lot of just normal life skills. And the biggest thing that, I always had a love for like history, and I've always looked at these stories as invoking a certain level of power, like in us. Like, it's almost like I know that our people have gone through so much. It's like working out. Every time you break something down and you build it back up and you overcome, that brings an additional amount of strength. And so, a common thing that we see, on TV, entertainment, is sports. Like we have, we're fast, we're strong, we're athletic, and we know this is a byproduct of generations before us. But however, one of the issues that I have is the fact that, you know, in a lot of school systems, we're seeing that they don't want to talk about history. And a lot of this history is not being taught to the kids. And I feel that truly is a disservice, man, because when you look at a lot of these kids, they're very specialized in what they do. Like they're advanced as far as like math. Like they have, oh man, this kid can do math, where man, this kid can play baseball at an amazing level, or this kid can play. But like the ground, like emotional stability is what I see that every generation it seems to be more challenging. And that's the part that I feel like we're losing, and we really need to balance out like how we reiterate the fact that no, we are a resilient people. We come from resilient traditions, you know, and that's the part where I've always questioned it. But I understand some things, going back to our original topic, like some things just literally aren't to be explained in our human mind. Where, you know, we may not find out the answers to these, or we may, once we, you know, cross over that threshold, go into heaven one day.
I think what we're talking about, we can see the impacts of slavery had on our people and still have on us today. And to your point, Mike, about how history or people are trying to cover up and stop teaching history to mask what happened. But to know what God truly, why he allowed it and what truly came out of it. Because I always think about it, man, he got a bigger view of the whole table than we do. So almost, you know, you think about chess. When you play chess, you gotta look at the whole table. You can't just look at that one move you're about to make. You gotta, before you make a move, you thinking about, okay, what's the counter move? Where you trying to go? How you gonna get there? What you might have to give up to get there. But we, in a sense, play checkers, and God plays chess. He sees the whole board, and so we look at history like, oh, 400 years. Man, 400 years of God is just a blink of an eye, you know. So he's looking at this thing from a standpoint where, you know, from beginning to end, it's not the same time stamp that we're using. You know what I mean? So we gotta think about the fact that God is God in the sense that he is like so much advanced and looks at time. There's no time with him. So we won't be able to answer those questions until we go see him and say, hey, Lord, what was up with this? You know, and they were like, oh, okay, now I got it. You know what I mean?
It makes me think of that scene inside of Avengers Endgame. For those that don't know, the Avengers is a superhero group. It was a movie. There's a guy named Doctor Strange. And so they was fighting this big bad villain. This was like the ultimate villain at the time. His name was Thanos. And they were trying to stop him before he got to Earth, because if he got to Earth, he was going to get this last stone that he needed to wipe out half of existence, half of humanity, okay? And so they was fighting him on this other planet, and there was this like sorcerer guy. His name is Doctor Strange, and he went away from the group for a second, and his head was like moving really fast, and he was looking at like every single infinite reality, like every option of everything that we could do. So it's like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen like Inception or thought about like, okay, what would have happened if my mom didn't meet my dad, or if I decided to play baseball instead of basketball in high school, and then like, what would my life be like? So in the movie, he was kind of looking at every single alternate reality based on the decisions that they made in that particular fight. And then there was a moment where Tony Stark, Iron Man, came up, and it was in the middle of the fight, and he was like, bro, what you doing? Like, he looked at him trying to figure out like, why are you not fighting? And then he was like, is this it? And then Doctor Strange signaled to him. He was like, this is the end game. This is the only one, which was like a signal to let him know that this is how it's supposed to play out. And they had lost that fight on that other planet. And Tony Stark couldn't believe it, but he was like, man, this is the only option. I've seen every single option of this playing out, and this is the one that works. And then the reason that I explain that story is because I think about Adam in the garden and then the fall right after. And then how many years, people don't really talk about it, but like how long it was before Jesus actually showed up. There was the Old Testament is humongous. There were so many different people, so many different wars, so many different stories, so many people who died from some senseless violence, so many kingdoms that rose up against God, all the way from Adam to Jesus, to the New Testament, Jesus. And it was like, all of these things, he gives you the lineage at the beginning of some of these different chapters, and he tells you this so-and-so was the father of so-and-so, who was the father of so-and-so, who had these kids, who was the father of so-and-so, and whose mother was born from so-and-so, because he's backtracking to let you know that he was there the entire time. He's like, no, this person, this situation had to happen in this area in this particular time period, because these people were going to do these things, which were going to give the birth of this person, which was going to lead to David being the king, which was going to lead to David doing this and then messing up over here, and then Solomon coming over and taking over. And then eventually we was going to get to the birth of Jesus Christ, and the perfect time period for him to do exactly what he was called to do, what he needed to do to restore our salvation, to bring the kingdom back to the earth. And so when you talk about God being able to see the big picture, I'm certain the ants, the ants on the anthill can't see that the Bigfoot is coming to smash the place. I'm sure that the person who was in David's time, while David was the king, I'm sure they was like, bro, what in the world is going on? The Philistines keep on coming over here and trying to wipe us out every 2 seconds. Can this God of Jacob, can this God of David just come and just handle these people for us? Like, can we stop dealing with them? I'm sure they had the same question, but God knew Jesus was coming, and God knew there was salvation, and God knew that the kingdom was going to be restored at a certain time, and X, Y, and Z had to happen to make it happen. So it's like, it's just sometimes, to your point, there's just some things we just don't know.
And I think during that journey, man, one thing that, as you talked about, you sharing, Martell, I think even our journey, and it's hard to see this in slavery, but you can even look at the Holocaust with the Jews. It wasn't that 400 years, but it was like, or wiping out millions.
Terrible.
Of people. Yeah. So, but through all that, man, what was some of the heroes that God developed out of that? We don't see them all. We see some books or some, but there was people who found him in a way that helped be a light, because of the situations they were in. You know what I mean? And it's happening today too. You see people. Not that we do what we do because God led us to do it. And I don't know about you, I had no idea I'd be doing some of the things I'm doing, and I only give him the credit. So, God he's trying to show us who we are in his kingdom.
Some of the questions that I have, I know it'll probably be abundantly clear and very obvious as soon as we transition over, like go to that next phase. But it's like, while you're here, there's just certain things that it's like, okay, if in the garden we had Adam, we had Eve, Adam had his assignment, he was doing his thing, Eve came along, then the serpent came in and said, hey, some blah, 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 blue, 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 tree over here, apple right here, you want some? She was like, okay, all right, whatever. I'll go ahead and give it a shot. And he was with her, and then she took a bite and then gave it to him. He took a bite too. And then boom, now we have the entire rest of the Bible. Well, if you think about it, if that didn't happen, we wouldn't need the rest of the Bible. Everything would be fine. And so it's like, why that? Like, why? I mean, if you see it all, if you know it all, why not? Like, why just, oh no, you're not actually allowed to be in the garden, snake. Get out of here. It's like, that's kind of my thing. But it's like, oh man, I know when we get there, it'll be like, I don't know what the answer will be, but it'll be very clear like why it all had to happen. Because my Bible theory here, my God theory here is that this whole life thing that we've got, because we're in it, we see it we put it on a higher pedestal than it really is in the context of eternity. And the way that I think of it is more so like, we're here to kind of train our spirit, train our spirit for the life that we have after we leave here. Because that life is going to be one, it's going to be infinite, it's going to be a lot longer. And I think a part of this is almost like a training ground for the assignment that your real assignment, because your real assignment comes after you leave here. That's what I think.
We're training our spirit, but the biggest thing is we're training ourselves how to work on a greater team and be a part of something. That's the part that we struggle with as humans. We all struggle with that childlike nature to want our thing. We want to be comfortable in our way. We want to achieve our goals. We have a thing. No, I have a goal I need to hit. But the thing is, man, how are you impacting others? How is your goal helping others? How are you being a part of a system? To me, I always looked at life as that is a real training ground, because that's one of the main things that I think we struggle with. And we've struggled with since the beginning of time, where, our free will, like we've talked about it in Men 2.0, where it's much easier for the masses of man and humanity to do the wrong thing than it is to stay resilient and keep that narrow path and do the right thing. Because you have human nature, and human nature is built out of comfort, is built out of sin. To be honest, it's derived from sin. So it's easy to sin. It's a little more challenging to stay persistent. Like we can say something like working out. People ask all the time, man, how do you stay? What's the secret? It ain't no secret. Every day you just gotta do the thing. And you gotta fight to do the thing harder some days than others. Some days it does seem like, oh, this wasn't that bad. Everything flowed. But a lot of times it's like, how can you operate even when it's not that feeling? And to me, I really think that's what the masses is really struggling. I mean, probably since the beginning of time. Well, definitely since the beginning of time when we have slavery. But now more than ever, because it's so easy to just be isolated in your own bubble and really just thinking about your thing. Like it's extremely easy to get caught up in tunnel vision. And I think we have to really train ourselves to be a part of a bigger thing.
The other thing too, we didn't say this, but I think people need to understand it's okay to ask these questions. It's okay to put this out there. I think the part of it too is that we gotta, if we're going to God to seek the answer, whether it be in prayer or meditation or whatever, or, and looking in the Bible. I mean, truthfully, that's what we should be doing. And as we go, as you and I, we had this conversation, and we're saying, hey, look, we don't have the answers to these questions, but it draws our mind to understand, okay, well, God did this in the Old Testament, or he did this in this situation, or he did this. And it kind of helps us pull it together. Like, well, what we're dealing with ain't nothing new. And God always had control. You know what I mean? It kind of gives us a window into the fact that, hey, God is in control. Which kind of, for me, when I had those questions, like, okay, I just got to trust him. Now, I have problems sometimes with certain things, but the point, though, is that it reminds me that I got to trust him and work. Just like you talk about, both you and Martell both play football. Hey, you got to trust what the coach called. You might not understand, but he's looking at the whole game like, hey, this is their weakness right here. I need you to do your part, and everybody need to do their part so we can exploit the weakness.
And that's the big thing. Like, as we kind of, I know we're getting to that time, but if we could give, the people just like our last little thoughts on this, I would say that's the biggest thing, where going back to the football analogy, like Bill Belichick has a very simple saying, but it's so prevalent. It was, we're like, hey, do your job. Don't be trying to do the next person's job. You can think about it. You can ask questions, but end of the day, you got to do your job. How does your job affect the other 10 men on this field? You know what I'm saying? And that's the part where, like I said, and not excluding myself, I have to constantly check myself too, is where it's easy for us to get caught up thinking about the things that we want, the things that we need. How can we hit our goals. But at the end of the day, it's like, listen, how can we do our job to impact the others?
Yeah, it's that kingdom mentality. Like understanding that we're all a part of God's kingdom, and we have an assignment here. We're not just here to have a good time. We got jobs to do. Well, cool. I mean, we are at that time, so all hearts and minds.
Hey, clear.
Clear.
Cool. So let's go ahead and go over these housekeeping items. Rodney, you want to kick it off?
Yeah. Hey, look, want to invite you out if you in Southfield area, you come out and have service with us in person at Freedom of Christ Ministry at 28202 Franklin Road in Southfield. You can also check us out virtually. Hey, our virtual service is still rolling, but I want to remind the men 2.0 is second Saturday every week, 10 a.m. Come on out, join us. It's powerful session. These brothers go. There's a lot of other brothers that go too. And we just understand what it is to be a man. So come check us out. Second Saturday of the month.
Yeah, so we got a few things going. I want to invite everyone to come check us out on the Instagram link at Detroit Investor _WCI. The big thing that we have some merch available right now where we want to provide inspirational streetwear. And so that's kind of what we're doing. We're inspired by, people doing real work every day. And we wanted to provide a uniform. And we're doing some other cool stuff just in the real estate community, just community period. So come check us out, and see what we have to offer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely want to check it out. It's some good stuff. Both what they were just saying, the merch that he's talking about, the community involvement, the Men 2.0, these are all things that if you haven't been a part of it already, you definitely want to give it a shot. Personal experience. It's good stuff. Okay. It's all a part of the kingdom. Just real quick, Focus 417 video advertising agency that helps roofers to get 60 at-home roofing consultations over a 60-day period, fully on a performance basis. If you want more information about it, link is in the description. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Stay for Tomorrow podcast. We appreciate you for being here. Again, if at the beginning of that episode, I told you to subscribe and you didn't, and now you made it here and you still ain't subscribed, now's your time to do that. We appreciate it. Go ahead and hit that like and the notification bell. We appreciate it, and we will see you in the next episode. Peace.
Peace.